Hi, everybody. So I am doing this free series to really explain in detail how the new $1 million equation works and how it truly is just three numbers. Once you know these three numbers, then you can build your own $1 million business from there. Right? Here's how we add an extra million to several of my clients. Here's why it works. Okay, so hold on just a second and I will share my screen. Let's do it. So here is your free lesson from the $1 million equation, right? The only three numbers needed to build your own $1 million business. Here it is explained. MDE equals C times S times V. C times F times V. So here's the true story. For the last year and a half, I had been working with an entrepreneur who was, quite frankly, killing it. Right when I got there, we were doing about 50,000 a month, which is nothing to sneeze at. It was just he and his wife. That was it. And he added my enrollment services, and so we went in to just handle the sales side of the business. And so I started off taking calls myself and then ended up adding people to the team. And over the last 18 months, we got up to about 700K per month, right? Same owner, same offer, same market. Here's what happened. 18 months later, we were at 50,000 again. It's like, what in the world is going on? Right? What happened? And truly, what happened is they only contracted me to do one thing. But while I was there and while things were getting better and better and better, I kept ringing the alarm and saying, hey, we're not looking at the whole picture. We're looking at a small little microcosm. And we really haven't created a great business. We've created one great offer that's working using this one way of getting a new customer. But that's not a business, because what happens is what exactly happened there is that all of a sudden you look up and that one liver that we were using, when it didn't work anymore and when it crashed to the ground, it crashed the business. Is it bad? Well, yes, because everything that we've built, that we invested in this business, the infrastructure of that business, it now all went away. People who were used to getting paid a certain amount, people on the team, people all of a sudden was just gone overnight. I know you say, oh, that doesn't happen. No, in the online space, it does. It does happen. It happens more often than not. It's gone overnight. And so now, no matter what, I will always teach the $1 million equation exactly how I know it, and require every customer to be running the $1 million equation so that this doesn't happen. This wasn't the first time. Back in 2022, before my cancer journey, same thing happened, right? They changed the offer. They changed how it was flowing down through. And what seemed like an easy sale became hitting against the wall. So I just want to implore you to look at these three numbers, not these three numbers on the screen, but the three numbers that I'm going to teach you in less than the next 30 seconds, so that now you can look at your business with fresh eyes and under a brand new lens, under the $1 million equation lens. Okay. Because it wasn't a marketing failure. It was truly an equation failure. He was only working on the first part of the equation. So every business on earth is only truly three numbers, right? Because there's only three numbers to grow. And the $1 million equation is C times F times V. So what is C? C is customers. And that's what my client was doing, was just focusing on customers. Just how many customers can we get coming through here as quickly as possible? And that was the only metric he was really monitoring. How can we get 16, 17, 25 new customers a week? And that's what we were doing all the way up to February of this year until it hit the wall. And then in March, it started to slow down, slow down, slow down. By April, it was over. By April, it was back down to the 50, and it hasn't passed that 50 cents. Right? So here's the deal, that there's only 3 ways to grow a business. And I learned this back in the day from Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy and all those old school marketing guys, and that there's only 3 ways to grow. One is to get brand new customers to come through. That's exactly what my client was doing. 2, get your existing customers to come back more often and buy from you again and again and again. That's what we didn't do in that particular business. They were just coming through, finishing the program, and then they would just sit there. And there was, by the time we started to focus on that, it was almost too little, too late. And then the 3rd way to grow your business is to, how much do they spend through each transaction? How can we expand that transaction, right? And so I always, when I speak live, I always give the example of McDonald's. Do you want fries with that? Right. Or how about when you go to the grocery store, where's the milk? The milk is all the way in the back. Why? Because the grocery store wants you to go through all the way past the potato chips, past the ice cream, past the macaroni and cheese, past the rotisserie chicken. So that now, yes, you are only there to get the milk, but you end up filling your basket as you go. And then they double down when you're trying to check out. And they've got Visine, they've got magazines, they've got candy bars if you're starving there. There's mints, there's all kinds of things to get you to expand that value. How much do they spend every single time? And the deep, deep dive of the new $1 million equation breaks it into just these 3 categories, so that every time you make a decision to spend any money in the business or time or effort, it's all based on one of these 3 ways, right? So here's your 3 numbers that you need to know. You need to know how many customers you served last year. You need to know how many times the average customer bought from you. And then last, you need to know the average spend per purchase. Okay? How many customers you served, with how many times they came in, and the average spend per person. Because once we know that, then we could truly, truly build your $1 million business very, very quickly. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, most business owners have never written this down, right? They have their P&L, they have all of these other things, and they're just trying to get more and more and more, but they're missing all those acres of diamonds, right? That's a business book I read years and years ago. They're missing all of these gems that are inside of there, and especially when we talk about building your $1 million business. Okay, so here is one of my clients. It is a CPA firm. I happen to do a lot with CPA firms or tax preparation firms. And this is what was going on, is that they had served 475 clients last year, only doing their taxes. And the average spend was $400. So let's do the math, right? 475 times 1 times 400 equals $190,000. So that's where they were, right? And I said, well, how do we get those people to come back more often? And they go, oh, Richelle, we only want to do taxes. I said, okay, but you're leaving so much money on the table. And the person that spends $400, like, their taxes are not complicated, right? There's oftentimes house, there's something else, but there's other things that we could sell them so that they're buying from you multiple times a year. How about you bring them in to do an evaluation of their car insurance, and you do a partnership with an insurance agent. So now you're getting a piece of when they come in. You also, add that to your arsenal, and now you can get residuals from it. Right? You don't have to get all 475 to make it make sense. Here's why. Because if you improve each number by just 20%, your business grows by how much? How much do you think? It's not 20% and it's not 60. So it's not 20, 20, 20, right? Here's the math. It's multiplication, not addition. So it's 1.2 times 1.2 times 1.2 equals 1.73. So if we just add 20% on 20% new customers, 20% on the amount of times that they come back to see you, yes, and then an additional 20% of more money that they spend with you, you have a 73% growth, almost double, with a little tiny bit of effort. No new tactics, no going viral, just arithmetic, right? Understanding the math in growing your great business. So here's my decision filter. Okay, before you spend $1, an hour, or an ounce of attention, does this increase my C, my F, or my V? Right? Does this increase how many times my customers are going to come back? Does this increase the value, the transaction size? Does this increase the amount of customers we have? With my client, all they cared about was getting a brand new customer. That's so expensive. And he was spending about $100,000 in ad spend a month. Now, that may not seem like a lot when you get back 700,000. But if you spend 100 and you get back 50, now we're losing 50,000 every single month. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So what we really want to do is spend that 100,000 a couple of times and then figure out the other ways to bring the customer back more often and expand that transaction when they come in. Right? So you guys have seen it 100 times. Upsells, downsells, cross sales. That's how you expand the transaction. Get them to come back more often. Hi, we've got another one of those things, right? Since you've already bought it. If it's a coaching program, which this was, now you have the alumni of the coaching program. You have the extension of the coaching program. You have the community so that you're billing something every single month. But it cannot just stop with one thing, because when one thing stops, now you don't really, to me, have a business until you get your customers coming back more often and you get them expanding the transaction every single time. One of the things that we actually do also in the new $1 million equation is, if it is a yes, right? If it increases the C, the F, and the V, then we systematize it. And so that's what the old book was, the old $1 million equation, right? The new one is I just got the proof for it. And so it's coming out next week. So I'm really super excited about that. And depending on when you're watching this, it may already be out. But it's all about installing those systems in your business so that you have a true business. Here's what I learned from Warren Buffett. He said, you don't have a real business unless you're making money in your sleep. So how about we figure out a way that you make money in your sleep, that it's not dependent on you. So I've taught this equation to 10,000 entrepreneurs, and I actually forgot my own. Here's my story, is that over the last 5-6 years, almost 10, I've been working, partnering with really big clients that have asked me to come in and do one specific thing. Don't get me wrong. It's easy to do one specific thing, right? One of them said to me one time, he's like, hey, Richelle, what is it that you don't want to do? And I said, well, I really don't want to run your business. And they laughed. They laughed. They were like, We don't need you to run our business, right? Okay, great, great. Well, guess what happens after 3 or 4 months is when I started to say, hey, you forgot this piece. Ooh, you might want to look for this. Guess what happens? I end up running the business. And so, hard to say out loud, right? It was just easier to just do it their way instead of me going, hi, this is going to be a problem. Hi, this right here is going to be a problem in the next month, in the next month and a half. And so even with the client that I talked about earlier, I said, hi, this is going to be a problem. Do you want me to work on that? Nope. I just want you to manage the salespeople. I'll take care of that. Okay. I just want you to train them and make sure they're ready to sell it, which is a service that my agency does. We provide the people, we do that. Like, we still have clients. That's all we do for. But now I require everybody to come in, right? If it's me doing it, if they are at double diamond status, which is we actually do the work for them. They have to go through the $1 million equation, right? So this free training that I'm doing is truly just to help you fix these things before they are a problem. Because I've watched it over and over and over again. The bonus of being older now is that I see it, and I see it happening over and over again. Okay, so let's do it live for one of my clients that was a 20-year firm, right? CPA. They had 100 customers. The customers came back twice a year. They normally spent about $2,000 each time they came. So whether it was for the tax return or the tax planning, they had those two things. But the revenue was flat for about 3 years. The owner was working more hours than ever, and he was really frustrated. And so the thought of getting any more customers just made him want to just throw up. He's like, no, I'm already working my head off. Like, that's not what I want to do. And so what we did for him is we really created other ways for him to make money. And some of it was just increasing the value, increasing the frequency, and increasing the customers just a little bit in those systems to allow him to not keep hitting his head. Right. And so now with an additional 20%, we went from 100 to 120 customers. It wasn't some big marketing campaign. We did a referral program for him, got these additional 20 people. They came back 2.4 times instead of one, a $2,400 value, which generated $681,000. He knew how to make money at 400, but that additional 281 went into his retirement. We did that over 3 years. He was able to have everything fully funded and sell it at a much higher value than he was before. Same business, same owner, not one viral post, not one where people were watching. It was just easy business, right? So which of your 3 numbers are leaking? So this video is truly just so that you can do that. In the comments, there is the free $1 Million Business Scorecard, all based on the $1 Million equation. It'll take you about 10 minutes, but with that, you'll find the leak in your business, and the link is below. So people who normally come to me have been running their businesses for years. They're over 40 plus, just so you know. And a lot of them say to me, Richelle, I feel like it's almost too late. And so let me just tell you, you're not behind. You got distracted just like I did. And everything you built still counts. I promise you. Everything you built still counts. So you can go ahead and grab the business scorecard below. And if you need any help, you can always just let me know.